Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Evermore podcast on the Evermore YouTube channel. We are back with a very special episode tonight, ladies and gentlemen. This is our happy birthday, our anniversary. This is our 1 year anniversary. 1 year ago, Mark and I had this crazy idea to jump on the camera, talk about Newcastle United. Some of you crazy bastards come and join us. Some more of you crazy bastards have joined us ever since. We've had an unbelievable year. We're really looking forward to doing this episode. We've got loads to talk about. I'm joined, as you can see, by the stat man who's been sounding like the killer from Scream all week. So he's pulled himself round to get and do the show tonight. And as this is a party, he sings, he's danced, he lives close to France. It's the Welsh wizard Die himself. How are we doing, guys? You all right?
That was excellent. Fair play. That was very good.
I don't know where I was going with that one from it. Just kind of came out a little bit. I'm quite glad. It landed quite well, mate.
Big fan.
I'll be honest with you. I quite like the intro about sound like the killer from Scream rather than I describe myself as sound like Madge Bishop. So I prefer yours.
Yeah. I've really skilled you up there. To be fair, you know, you sounded like Kylie's mom, and I've made you the killer from Scream. I've really put some chops on you there, mate. I've got to say. But yeah, a little bit of housekeeping before we get cracked on, guys. Newcastle United is back, thank God. Super World Cup. We're going to get stuck in that in a minute, but a little bit of housekeeping. If you haven't already, smash that subscribe button. Come and join us. We are on now 2,100 and how many, Mark? Is it
47?
47. I'm just testing Mark's memory there. But when we started this, I think we were on something about 47. So we've had some unbelievable growth in the first year, which is absolutely brilliant. But if you've just caught us the first time, we had a couple of new subscribers the other day, loads of room on Evermore. All free content is, we don't charge you. It's rough as toast out there at the minute. We don't need you spending your hard-earned cash listening to us talk shite. Get the heating on, save a few quid and listen to us talk about Newcastle United. So we're going to get stuck in. We are live as well, as always. Jump in the comments. We've got a few comments in there from some of our regulars already. They've been there early doors, so there must be nothing on the telly tonight. So good to see all you guys in the comments as well. So let's get stuck in then. So the first category we're going to get stuck in tonight, boys. The lads are back. Thank fuck. I don't know about YouTube. I'm sick of this shit World Cup. It's not got me excited at all. And it's not just because I'm from north of the border. A little bit. But it's because it's been shit, really. Shit referees, shit games, shit scores, everything. I'm not happy with it. So I'm so glad that the lads are back. But there's been a little bit of madness. I just come to you first on this one, mate. The madness really is this whole fixture rescheduling. I mean, this World Cup has been batshit crazy anyway in the middle of the season, as we all know. But I mean, this fixture change madness going on now. I know it might affect you personally as well, mate, isn't it? Because you're coming back over for some games, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm coming to Fulham at home. That obviously got moved to the Sunday afternoon, so that knackered me because the game kicks off about half an hour before my flight was due to leave. So that's cost me a few quid to reschedule that. And I'm going to Arsenal away as well. So that's only been knocked on by a day. So that didn't really affect me too much, to be perfectly honest. But still a pain in the arse.
Absolutely. It's not ideal, Mark, is it really? You know, the people like Di, who obviously are flying back, you know, international supporters that this club does have a lot of, but even for the guys in the Northeast as well, you know, getting the hotels and the trains and, you know, changing a day or two, you know, especially this time of year on the festive period, but times are tough. You know, could be make or break for a few fans, couldn't it?
Yeah, it's in some cases the difference between going and not, isn't it? Because like you said, if you made arrangements for hotels and they can't be changed, you know, pretty late on, it's tough. And for somebody like Di, who's having to travel internationally, I mean, that throws a huge spanner in the works, doesn't it? So it's just I mean, it's the way of the Premier League, isn't it, for this to happen? Anyway, games are moved for TV all the time. I know the Bournemouth game next week has been moved for other reasons.
Yeah, for the strikes, isn't it? 1 day, I think. Which is
1
day is not too bad, to be fair, I think.
But having said that, though, you look at the distance you've got to travel.
True.
I mean, it's not like you're traveling. You know, it's not like Newcastle playing Leeds. The distances involved between Newcastle and Bournemouth, it's huge, and that's not just easy for somebody just to change on a whim.
You're right. You're right. It is. Yeah, it does seem a little bit, I suppose. I mean, the strike thing's a bit different, lads, isn't it? Because that you couldn't have really seen that coming. Really, that's very reactionary, isn't it? But I think likes of the games you've been changed for TV. I mean, you're listing them off there. We've got what have we got? We've got the Sheffield United game that's been changed. I think the same day, but a little bit later in the day. It went from 3:00 to 5:30 or something like that. I think so. So that's a later trip back for the fans there. I think we've got the Arsenal game, the Fulham game, the Leicester game. They've all changed for TV. So I think we've had something mental like four fixtures in February have all been rescheduled for TV. And do you think, Di, this is part of that curse of being a top four side that people want to see us? Do you think almost our successes has caused this fixture madness?
Yeah, I think so. And there was always going to be some relative downside come with the success we were achieving, and I think a lot of it is because we're playing good football. People want to watch us, and we're an entertaining team to watch, and I think there's a bit of excitement. It's a good story for a lot of people as well. So I think that plays into it. I think the way football is and money and TV and whatever. I think we're not on a Saturday 3:00 for us. Is it 8 games in a row or something? Is it something mad like that?
Something mad like that, mate. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So I think that's I don't really like that, but I mean, we're nitpicking here. I'm excited to have Newcastle United back and see what the lads have been working on in the winter break over in Saudi Arabia, and hopefully hit the ground running when we get back going as well.
Well, I mean, fingers crossed. I mean, it's interesting actually, Mark. Just some of the news that came out, I was quite surprised at this. I don't know if you were, but is it apparently Trippier and Wilson have already returned back to Newcastle for pre-season or for this kind of start of the next part of the season? Do you find that a bit strange? I mean, I know that they didn't have a lot of game time, did they? So they might not be as exhausted potentially as they could have been if they played every game. Do you think that's probably what it is?
I think a little bit. I also think that they're fully invested in what's going on too. And you've got to look at, had this been last season or earlier on, more specifically in last season when this happened, I don't think they come back so quickly. As professional as they are, if you're coming back to a Steve Bruce side, you're not going to want to come back quite so sharpish.
Or at all.
I think they're coming back. Well, yeah, they're coming back fit. They're coming back fresh. They've had a break. Callum Wilson's done a lot of pretty much sitting on a bench.
Nick Pope, great holiday for them too.
I'm not sure I saw too many pictures of Nick Pope, to be fair. But he's going to be fresh and ready to go. Trippier started in the World Cup and then lost his place after the US game, didn't he? So yeah, he's going to be raring to go too. So I'm not sure it's an unusual thing based on the fact that they've had very limited game time. But I just think it probably just goes to show that their will to get back and carry on and move the club on. And pick up from where they are in third in the league and carry on and trying to get into the Champions League places.
I wonder if there's a bit of like playing for places to an extent going on as well, especially with Callum Wilson with Isak. And I know he's obviously there's talk of him being injured, and obviously Wilson himself might have been a bit injured in the World Cup. I think the thigh strain they were saying. Equally, there's talk of us signing this young fullback from, is it West Ham in January? So again, maybe he's looking at Trippier. I mean, I'm not suggesting his place is in jeopardy now, but maybe he's looking at coming back and kind of reasserting himself on the squad and on the team, and maybe that's a bit of a part of it as well, that they want to get show, like Mark says, show how keen they are to get back involved, not just for the sake of the team and the club, but also for their playing places as well.
Yeah, well, we'll have a look in a second about potentially what could happen in January as well, and that maybe plays into the lads' minds. But we're going to talk about the Vallecano game towards the end of the episode, because obviously we've got that at the weekend. But just what's your thoughts, Mark? Starting with you in terms of the lads coming back. I mean, obviously we had a really good result in Saudi Arabia, but no disrespect to them, I think us three could have played 1-3-0. I think, to be fair, because there were no great shakes for the. Let's put it that way. That's no pun intended. There were no great shakes. So I knew I was going to get you that one, Di.
That's very good. That was very good.
It was good. I don't know what's in this tea tonight, honestly. But
I was going to say, right. You should write some of these down, mate. You should take this show on the road. Mate.
I should take this show on the road, right? Not in this weather. Fuck that, man. I wouldn't get out my driveway. But I think so. What's your take, Mark, on us coming back? Momentum. Do you think we're going to hit back where we are? Do you think we're going to get to a stage where teams have maybe took us a bit more seriously, stepped up a bit, and thought, shit, we need to low block and watch Miggy and, press Bruno high and all that? Do you think there's going to be a little bit of that coming back, or do you think we're going to come back and get back to where we were?
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because the break has given a lot of the teams, certainly, well, I'd say certainly the teams sort of lower, it gives them a lot of time to sit and watch video footage and work out how Newcastle play. Because there is a very similar theme to the way Newcastle play in sort of every game. But I guess that also works for the teams sort of in and around them as well. But I guess the difference is that they've been able to work on that with players there. As the teams around have all lost multiple players to the World Cup, and they haven't been able to work with them at that point. So you almost have a little bit of an advantage on the teams in and around you, because you've kept more of your players at the club to be able to carry on the work and then sort of hit the ground running. Everybody seems fresh. Everybody seems ready to go. There's the question mark about Isak, I guess, but I guess that's, you're going to downplay it a little bit and keep him ready to go and not push him too much. But
are you worried about Isak? I'm a bit worried about Isak. I'll get both your takes on this, but what do you think about this?
Look, he's coming back from injury. It's never an easy thing. We've seen that with Callum Wilson before, where coming back from injury is always fairly difficult, susceptible to tweaks here and tweaks there. I'm worried about him, not especially. I just think it's being cautious about him. If he has got a little niggle, you don't rush things with him. Like, you've spent an absolute fortune on him. You're not going to want to wreck him before he's even got started. So you're going to play things really cautiously. And if it means taking a few weeks more to get him back in and running, then fair enough. And we've seen that with Eddie, haven't we? He's not going to rush people in, even when everybody's screaming them. Even for new transfers, we saw that with Bruno last season. He wasn't just going to throw people in for the sake of it. He's going to stick to his plan. And if his plan now is for Isak is to give him a little bit more time to recover fully, then I think I'm not worried, especially in that regard.
It's a fair comment there by William as well, Di. Saying other sides had all summer to figure us out from how we ended last season, and obviously they haven't done it. But what's your take on Isak, Di? Are you concerned, mate, or do you think he'll be, we're just managing him more responsibly, unlike Bruce, who would have played him with like half a leg hanging off?
Yeah, exactly.
Just plastered him up and told him to crack on. So.
Yeah, I think, but the Bruce thing was what I was going to say, to be honest. I think that is the big notable difference here. I think that there is a plan. Someone's thought this through. We're not just, what a novel idea. We're not just kind of hoping for the best.
On you go, lad.
Yeah, God, you'll figure yourself out. Yeah, but I can't walk, Barry. I think that what's important here is that we're managing the situation. He's 23 years old. There's countless examples of players having little growth spurts at different times, and these little kind of thigh strains and niggles and here these sorts of things happen. And it's about managing them so that when he comes back, Ash is taking the words out of my mouth, so that when he comes back, he's 100% when he comes back, and he's not half-assed like Bruce would be. And also, playing in a situation where he might make himself worse. That's the key thing for me. He needs to be back so that this problem is solved and sorted, and he can hit the ground running. Not, let's see how he is for a couple of weeks, and then again, like I said, hope for the best. So I think it's important that he's managed properly.
Absolutely. It's a great line by Ash. Sorry, Ash, we won't have any more B-bombs being dropped on tonight's show. It's a bit like, remember that movie Demolition Man with the fine yacht, the machine? It's sparing in the future. We should have one of them machines locked up every time we drop a bacon bomb. Oh, Mark's done it.
Hey.
That's it. Mark's getting the biggest fight out of all of us there. So good point by Roger here. ASM straight back in or bench. For me, I'll take this one for starters, lads. I think that at the minute, while Wilson's been away at the World Cup, and I think Eddie Howe knowing Callum Wilson as well as he does, and he knows how his body works, and in terms of doesn't want to break down. I think ASM will come in. I think certainly for the cup game. I think ASM will be there. If Isak doesn't make it, it'll be probably Wood through the middle, and then possibly Miggy out on the right hand side or something like that. But what do you think, Mark, about ASM? Do you think he's back in? But if Isak's fit and Wilson's fit, does ASM drop out for you? He does for me. What about you?
I guess it depends on what his form's like when he does come back. I know that's a really sit on the fence answer, but if he comes back in, into the cup game and has an absolute blinder, you're not just going to drop him out if Isak's fit. I think Isak will probably then start from the bench, and then see how it goes from there. And then as ASM's form evolves, whether that's in the positive or negative, you then possibly move him aside if it does go south a little bit. But I think he looks fit, doesn't he? He looks ready. So we'll see next week. I certainly agree with you. I think he will come in for the cup game. I think you're more than likely going to see it with Chris Wood through the middle. As you get back to the league games, certainly don't think you're going to risk Wilson starting in that game at all. I don't think he'd be ready for that. So no, I think he comes back in, but then it's all dependent on whether he hits the ground running. Because if he does, he's a game changer as well, isn't he? So you then the possibility of two of them, the one either side of Wilson into the so.
You could have a real selection dilemma, but it's a lovely segue into this one, Di. For the next one, I'll bring you in straight away for this. Are we shopping in the January sales? There's been so many names linked, so many names thrown. We do the little rumor has it videos, as everybody knows. We're not ITK. We don't have any inside information. Blah blah blah. We just say what's in the media and we talk about it. Most of you guys love it. Some people knock about it, but they don't read the tag. Rumor has it. It's not ITK. So just bringing you in on this one, Di. I've just shuddered there at the thought of Chris Wood through the middle. I mean, for me, I think as an attacking player or somebody who can play right across the front three, might not be a bad shout. There's loads of players linked. Pick any name you want, mate. There's loads of them. But do you think, A, we are going to shop in January, and B, where do you think we need to strengthen most importantly, in your opinion?
I think we definitely will. I think there's no way we've been doing all these sponsorship deals and all sorts of other stuff, just for that to sit on the fence, so to speak. We've been doing that, for this January transfer window. I think we've been given an opportunity, or we've created an opportunity for ourselves, where there's a real chance of European football next year, be that Europa League or Champions League, if everything continues to go as well as it is. So I think we have to look to strengthen if we want to, A, continue that push, but also be in a good position to continue to build in the summer, regardless of how that comes around, because we definitely need to strengthen our squad. I'm less bothered about a striker in this particular moment in time. I think between Isak, Wood and Wilson, we're covered for now, given we only play one up front. I know there's a lot of chat about Maddison. I'm less keen on Maddison, to be honest. I think we'd have to accommodate him rather than him slot in to the way we're playing at the minute. And for me, I don't think we need that disruption. I'd be looking at wide players as one of our go-tos. Trossard is someone I've mentioned before. I think is a good player, and I think he'd be available. And I don't think he's got massive amounts of time left on his contract, so I think there's an element of something could happen with someone like him. I'm not saying exactly him, but someone like him. I think we could do with strengthening in midfield. I think one more central midfield player I think would be important for us. Possibly if I'm being greedy, maybe a centre half as well, but I appreciate that's a big ask. But I think we're at the point now where we're not getting people for the sake of getting them. They need to be someone who has a big impact on our team. And I think that, there's other options. I appreciate when we do these, transfer related things, I always have a Welsh person in the back of my mind, but I'm very predictable if nothing else. But
pull out that Welsh draw, mate. What you got in there? There it is.
But Brennan Johnson is someone for me who I've mentioned on the pod before a couple of times, and written things about him as well. And I think he's just such a good football player, and I think he's so fast and direct. And he's a young lad. I think he's only 19. He's got experience. He's got goals in the Premier League. He's Nottingham Forest penalty taker. I think he's a really, really talented player, and I think teams are going to be sniffing around him. Maybe not, in the summer, but not in January, but in the summer. And he was someone, if we had half a chance of signing him, I think he would make an impact now, but he's someone who will be a talented player for the future. I would also say the same potentially about someone like Nico Williams, who can play right back, but can also kind of push on and is young, exciting player. He's fast, he's dynamic, he can shoot with both feet. I think he's a super talented player in the making. So I'd be looking at other people like that. If there was something that could pop up in that sort of area, I'd be looking at those as well. But I mean, I think for me, getting wide players in is the key for me.
Yeah, Mark, just to bring you in on this one, we were talking about this in the chat the other day, especially after his unbelievable wipeout challenge on Kylian Mbappe the other night. If anybody saw that in the World Cup, the Moroccan midfielder is Amrabat. What a fucking machine that bloke is, by the way, mate. Would he do a job for Newcastle at central defensive midfield, which we massively need, in my opinion?
I think so. Can I just two things? You mentioned Chris Wood through the middle, which brings a horror story to that the Bruno song, doesn't it? It changes the words completely. That's just
God,
horrible.
could you imagine that? We've got Chris Wood through the middle. He's got no fucking clue what to do. It's probably what it would be.
And the other line is Dai just angling to be the Welsh players' recruitment agency, just single-handedly.
Absolutely, I could see that. I could see,
somewhere,
definitely him and Michael Sheen cruising around having a few scoops. I could see that, mate. Well done.
But yeah, the Moroccan lad was. I mean, the ground he made up on Mbappe was unreal, and he covered that ground so well, and he absolutely leveled him. That was just a delight, and
brilliant.
As a staunch English supporter, I went to see Mbappe's Cheshire grin once Kane had missed the penalty. That was
shithouse editing, though, wasn't it, by the BBC? Me and Di were laughing about this, as obviously two non-Englishmen by birth. We did have a chuckle about this.
That was glorious. Chris sent me that screenshot within 5 seconds of it happening on the TV. I got the exact same thing from Chris. I enjoyed it immensely. Apologies, everyone.
No, I could not have been happier that somebody did him. No, not to injure him, because he's a fabulous footballer, but just sit down and shut up for a bit.
But he's been brilliant though, Mark, hasn't he, through the whole tournament? He looks like that kind of ball busting midfielder. If you had him marshalling that defense, I mean, don't get me wrong, our defense is really, really good, but if he was sitting there, games like that City game where we drew 3-3, he's that stop those through balls from De Bruyne, get out there and get in his face. They're the kind of games we win with a guy like that, isn't it? Surely. But I know Liverpool are sniffing around him, so he won't come cheap, will he, by all accounts?
No, not at all. To be fair, there's a few of that Morocco side that are going to be angling for moves elsewhere now as well, because they've been tremendous. They pretty much the story of the World Cup. So they've been exceptional. But yeah, I think he definitely is one to look at. I think that central defensive midfield area is an area of need. We've said this right the way through. I think, as PK would say, at number 4, I know we kind of go with a 6, don't we? But whatever number, I don't care. That's an area that just frees up the likes of Bruno to be a little bit more free and play in his much more forward facing role. But it also gives the defenders a little bit more cover. It allows Trippier to bomb on, get forward. It allows the left back, whoever that is, whether that's going to be Burn, Target, or Ian Other, to get up the other side as well, because then he can just drop in and make a 3 or move into the vacant spot on either side. So it's definitely a position of need, I think.
Yeah. It's a good shout by William as well. We did a video on Moses Caicedo. He's a very good player. Reminds me a lot of kind of a young Kante, not to sound like Louis Walsh there. Reminds me of a young Kante. I think left back will definitely be a position that we strengthen in. I think that is a huge problem position. Just before I finish there, great to have you on board, Vincent, mate. Hope you're enjoying the show. Top man. So yeah, just on the left back, I know we'll be linked to Sousa from Croatia, but he got really done, didn't he, the other night? He looked like he got absolutely ripped to pieces the other night when I think it was France. Was it France they were playing? Yeah, he got ripped to bits. But that can happen to anybody. But he's still a decent left back. But that position still worries me personally. And I'm a massive Maddison fan, as we all know. If you watch my Rumour Has It videos of Maddison, I'm nearly wetting my pants with excitement talking about the lad. But he's I do agree with Di to an extent that he's that kind of a player that will he be disruptive potentially to what we have? In terms of making the allowances for him to drop into the positions that he drops into, or is he just that good of a footballer that he won't cause that problem? He'll come in and he'll play the Eddie Howe way and we'll never look back. But I'm a huge fan of Trossard as well, Di. And what I like about Trossard the most is he can play up front. He played up front against Chelsea, didn't he, mate? And he looked brand new. Didn't he get a goal or two, I think, Di, in that game?
Yeah, he did, yeah. Got one, yeah.
Yeah, so and smashing play. But you wanted to add something, Di, on the Morocco lad, didn't you? Because I mean, he was a phenomenal footballer, no doubt. But as a hard midfielder,
I just, my only thing, I have a slight thing in my mind with kind of players in the World Cup. If we were linked to him before and he's turned up and he's done well at the World Cup, you'd think, yeah, okay, I can go with that. I do sometimes think with these players who, especially in these sort of stories, like Morocco, going a long way, and I'd even say maybe Denmark in the last Euros and Wales in 2016. It's quite easy to look at some of these players who do well in this unit and this system, and then you try and take them out of that and put them somewhere else. And there's not that little thing is kind of missing to an extent. And I always thought this with Joe Allen. I always thought Joe Allen would have been a brilliant player for
Joe Allen. Joe Allen to use his full name.
Little Joe. I think he'd be brilliant for us. Obviously, well, not anymore, obviously, but I think also a lot of that is based on his performances for Wales. And I think when you take him out of the setup where it's basically set up for him to have that holding role and kind of, move the ball about and whatever, when you try and put him into something else and ask him to do something else, I think it maybe doesn't have the same quality. So I would just be a little bit wary personally on the Morocco fella. Amrabat, I always say fella, that sounds disrespectful. I feel like I'm going to say his name wrong, so I don't want to do that. But so I do think we've got to be slightly wary of that, and I think there's a few of those like links I've seen for us and people who've done well at the World Cup, where I do just think a bit like, would he work in our system? Is it, if they were good enough, we would have been linked with him before. And he's obviously a good lad. He plays for Fiorentina, I think, doesn't he? So, he's obviously got something about him. But I'm always a bit on edge about that sort of purchase.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I've got one that springs to mind. I think Mark has as well. Karol Poborski. Remember, he played brilliant at the Euros, and then he was pretty shit for Man United. Really wanted, to be fair. He looked like one of the ugly stepsisters out of Cinderella as well, didn't he? To be fair, he wasn't winning in any way, was he? Mate? But Mark, you had a corker as well. Tell us your one. I see that in the private chat.
El Hadj Diouf. I mean, he had a cracking World Cup in 2002, didn't he? Where he scored the goal against France, and he was tremendous. Went to Liverpool, and he was awful, absolutely awful.
A couple of that team got picked up, didn't they? Like, was it Papa Bouba Diop?
Salif Diao was another one. Yeah. Papa Bouba Diop, who I think died, didn't he?
He has,
remember rightly. Yes.
Was that not Mark Vivian Foe? Was he coming?
No, that was a separate player. I think, so there were a few that sort of picked up as a result of that, but that just highlights the example of that. You can have a great World Cup in the system that you're built into in the international side, and that doesn't necessarily translate.
That's how bad he was. He ended up at Sunderland. A couple of the names just on the transfer section. Great shout by BT there.
I would love
Rabiot. We've done a rumor has it on Rabiot, and the rumor has it that he was a bit of a knob. But when you're that good, I mean, Di, you've said there you love him. I mean, he's just looks so class, doesn't he, on the ball, and his movement and his vision and everything for France. He just looks so class. Even if he is a bit of a dickhead, I'm sure Eddie Howe could get him to calm down a bit, play for this team, surely, mate.
And there's levels to that, isn't there? You're not Cristiano Ronaldo, dickhead. And I think exactly. and I think was someone like Rabiot, and I think we're probably not quite there yet, in my opinion. But oh my God, he's so good on the ball. His drive and his ability to run with the ball at speed and pick up little pockets of space to move into and pick the right pass. I think he's a fantastic footballer. And
him and Griezmann have been immense in this World Cup. Them two have been immense for that team. Really.
And I think the way that Rabiot kind of props the midfield up almost, but makes those line breaking runs and everything else. Well, that's the big question, Ash. Does he catch? I think PK would make an exception for Rabiot. I think we all would. I think he's superb. If there was half a sniff that anything like that could happen, I'd say we should break the bank for him. I think he's a absolutely superb footballer.
Yeah, well, a couple of names that kind of come to mind. Mark's just got a nip off for a second there, so me and you just rattle on with this time. But I think a couple of names that you mentioned there about us not being there yet. We saw links to João Felix. We're not there yet, in my opinion. I think João Felix is a level beyond us. I think you said it when we were talking in the chat. If we were a Champions League club going into next season guaranteed, and we went for João Felix, then maybe, because all of a sudden, then if we do finish in the top four, that opens up a whole new player pack, doesn't it? Really, of players that we can entice to the club. It's very similar to what City did when they went up levels. And the other name that was linked in. I thought he actually had quite a good World Cup. They were a hard-working athletic side, but I mean, obviously it's somewhere you know well because you lived there for a bit. But Christian Pulisic from Chelsea, I thought certainly that England game, he looked really, really good. And apparently the fee is set at about 40 million quid. Now, if Leicester are wanting 60 for Maddison, do you think Pulisic is a snip at 40, or do you think he's not quite right for us?
To be honest, I've mentioned this in the chat. I'm going to have to be careful how I word this, but I'm friends with someone who's got good connections in certain parts of the world, and I'm reliably informed that I'm not sure that Pulisic would pass the PK dickhead test. But that's only one person's opinion. But
that's true.
Yeah, I think he's a great player, and I think at the minute he fits our system. And I think that's really, really important. And I think if he could come in and show the ability...
I love that. We're going to get a T-shirt with that on. That's absolutely class. Just you go like that.
I like that. Yeah, if he could come in and make an impact, I watched, an unfortunate amount of him in the World Cup, but I think the way he runs at people is fantastic, and in his pace and dynamism. And like I say, I think he would slot into our squad. We don't need to we don't need to change the way we play, which I think is something that might need to be done with Maddison to an extent. I think Pulisic would just drop in and have a real impact very quickly. So I'd love to see him come and play for us.
I agree, Mark. Just finally getting your take as well on Pulisic there. We're talking about, it's that kind of a player, isn't it? It's a player that can play right across the front. It's a player that can bring creativity, bring goals. So you're staring at two choices here as Newcastle United potentially in January. I personally think Maddison wants to move. I think you guys probably both agree with me. He does as well. If Leicester dig their heels and mark for 60 million quid with Maddison, and they won't budge, and they're willing to lose money on him in the summer, and Pulisic is there for 40. Now, the story is, I think that we would be ahead of, was it Manchester United and Leeds, I think, who are in for Pulisic. We would be ahead of them in Pulisic's eyes. Maybe he thinks he'd get more game time with us. He's still quite a young player. Are you with Di? Do you think that's a deal too good to pass up, get in there, get stuck in?
It's certainly a terrific deal if you can bring him in. Like Davey said there, he'll sell shirts. He certainly will.
Absolutely.
Profile in America, absolutely. I know we talk and we bang on about this no dickhead policy, but I think so at some point you're going to have to factor in maybe
buy a dickhead or two.
Because at some point the player is too good to turn down.
Yeah.
And it's whether they will take you on to another level. And I think with Pulisic you've got somebody, you nailed it right on the head there. He can play right across that front area. He can give you width. He can give you performance through the middle from deep as well. He's so versatile that he then fills gaps everywhere. And if the price is right, and I think somewhere in the region of about 40 million is a pretty good deal for him in that regard for the standard of player that he is.
I think, and he's sorry, Di, go on.
Sorry, I'll just say just quickly with the dickhead policy is that at a point as well, you're right, we have to get involved and do that. But I also think the further up the ladder in terms of talent you go, you have to accept there's a level of ego and everything that goes along with that ability, and with that comes an element of dickhead. And I think it's just about, as Ash says, there is managing that. And I agree. I think I would trust Eddie out, to pick the right characters and be able to put the arm around the right person and whatever else and get the best out of them. So I think you're right with the quality hopefully rising. There's an ego and everything else that goes with that, which I think might mean that our dickhead policy might have to waver ever so slightly, depending on what becomes available. You're on mute, mate.
Yes, you're on mute.
Done that. First time I've done that. My wife will be happy if there's a mute button somewhere. But there's layers of dickhead, isn't there? There's like Zlatan, there's Ronaldo, like you say, Di. There's these guys that just think they're bigger than any club, any manager, anything like that at all. For me, I think Pulisic, he's a big game player. He's played for massive clubs. He's played European football. I think he's captained his country as well. So he's a leader of a player, still a really young player as well. I think I'm with you boys. I think 40 million quid for him is really, really good business. And do you know what? We could even go back for Maddison in the summer. Do you know what I mean? If that was the case. But I think for me, Pulisic would be a fantastic signing. And I think it would be a no-brainer to get him. Williams saying there on a proper team The leadership will keep them in line. Absolutely, William. We've got the leadership to handle that. And it's players that people respect. They respect Kieran Trippier. They respect, Wilson. They respect IASM because of his ability. Bruno as well. So I think Nick Pope as well is still a very good goalkeeper. They all respect him as well. So as Roger says, their trips will sort them out. So yeah, for me, I don't think Pulisic will be a problem. Footballers, I think, are quite prima donnas anyway, aren't they? Let's be honest with you. They can act up in different parts of the world. Whether you see them out in the street, they're just having a bad day and they're a bit of a knob one time. Next time you see them, they're okay. So I think it's quite hard to get a beat on these players. And obviously Eddie Howe being such a strong man manager, I think he wouldn't sign a guy if he had any doubt that his attitude was going to be wrong, would he? So we've got to trust in the manager, but it will be interesting. We'll have loads of Rumour Has It videos, guys, so make sure you stay tuned to the channel. If you're a new subscriber like Vincent, we'll have loads of Rumour Has It's popping up, towards the window. When the window opens, I'll probably do like 9 videos a day and never sleep, because that's what I generally do. We'll get started there. So the next topic we're going to move on to is a lovely bit of news, actually. And for me, I want to talk about it, lads, because it just highlights the difference of where we have been under Ebenezer Ashley compared to where we are now under this new management, or this new leadership, management, ownership, whatever they are. So Newcastle United have launched a new campaign with the food bank, which is this campaign here. It's a helping hand for Christmas. So just to explain a little bit about what the helping hand for Christmas is. So what Newcastle United have done, they have donated 150,000 to the Newcastle West End Food Bank, which is one of the biggest food banks in the country. And it's an outreach program, really, just to help the community over the Christmas period. We all know we're in a cost of living crisis. Times are really, really tough. Mark, just coming to you first on this. I'm not going to drag outside podcast world into it, but you know what it's like for people in these positions, on a regular basis. This is a phenomenal thing from the club, isn't it? And it's just such a clear indication that despite the controversy around the ownership, the people behind the wheel here are driving in the right way, aren't they?
I think what it shows is the willingness to listen to the people that work at the club as well. I think is Darren Eales has said in the sort of interview that he did, was a lot of this was coming from the staff at the club. They want to get involved with the community projects within the foundation, with it, going to help at the food bank, and this was really a community-driven project and a community-driven sort of thing. So this was, like you said, chalk and cheese to where we were a couple of years ago. With I mean, you're just not going to get that level of community spirit out of Ashley. And the fact that the owners and the club are willing to listen to that and put their money, where their mouth is, and get involved with these projects. And I've seen this comment before, and it's a slightly controversial, but I hate food banks. Absolutely hate them. I hate the fact that there's a need for them. That there should be no need for them. And I think they said this on the news yesterday. We were talking about them with was it the lad from Lad Baby who was doing the charity thing?
Oh yeah, he's on Good Morning Britain, wasn't he? About
Trust, yeah. And he said the same thing. He hates them. There should be no need for them, but the fact that they're there, they need the support. And the club, the fans especially, have been phenomenal in their support for the food bank over the last year or so and beyond. And then to see the club getting involved like this is just a really, really good thing. And you touched on it, my outside podcast life. I deal with that sort of situation daily, and unfortunately have to use, or be in touch with places like that on a regular basis. And it's hard, and it's getting harder for people, and to have the club in a privileged position where they are now, to know that they're not blind to what's going on. Like I say, and willing to do the extra thing and help out. It is a good thing, and it's nice that's driven by the staff, and it shows that there's some real good eggs within the club.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? These people who are so obscenely wealthy, as in who own us, and obviously they do cause a lot of controversy. You put in our chat when you listen to Darren Eales talk, and he spoke so well. I mean, this is just it's heartwarming, really, isn't it, with the way things are going? Not just in the UK. I mean, you'll see it where you are. It's all around the world. Everybody's really struggling at the moment and have to use things like food banks. And I mean, I'm really proud to be a Newcastle United supporter and see the club doing things like this. I mean, what was your kind of take on the whole new kind of community launch scheme?
Yeah, first of all, I agree with everything that Mark has said there. I think I think it says a lot about the life and times that we live in. That there's a necessity for these things, and I think it's not good enough. But without wishing to get too political, I think the thing that really struck me about this was the importance of the football club in it all, the people who work in it, the understanding of what is happening around the place at the minute. When we talk about football clubs going out of business, as happened unfortunately with a lot of football clubs, they have to be protected because they're community assets. And when people say that, it sounds like bullshit. It sounds like a nonsensical thing to say. And this is a perfect example of what a community asset means, what a football club, in regards to it being a community asset really means. Because not only is they're giving the money, they're also donating people in a way, in that they're offering to support staff in and pay for people to work there and support their infrastructure and pay for their overheads and do all of these things. And I think that's just so important that the club is at the forefront of issues in the community. Like you said there, the West Ham Food Bank is the biggest football community biggest food bank in the country. I mean, that's unbelievable in itself, and it says a lot about the Northeast as an area that's been deprived of investment a lot. And I think they kind of mentioned that in the chat, and that I think that's massive for me. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer at any point about it. It does slightly make me feel uncomfortable with saying like, good on the owners for doing this.
It's maybe the management as opposed to the owners potentially. Yeah,
do you know what I mean? I'm happy to praise the club as a whole for doing it. I feel a bit weird praising the owners for it personally, but I think as principle, in terms of it being part of the community, which is what we've craved for Newcastle United for a long time, and to see that happening is genuinely heartwarming.
I'll just put the Saudi flag back down, Di. Sorry about that. I wasn't going to do that, though. I wasn't going to do that. But yeah, it is. It's something that we want to talk about because it is a lovely thing that the club are doing, as Di rightly says. And you know what? Anyone who has to use those food banks, I'm sure it'd be greatly appreciated by them. Great for the staff to go over and help. And I think, from Newcastle, whether you're in the Netherlands or whether you're in Newcastle like we are, you're proud of the city and you're proud of the club and the staff, for doing something so worthwhile that means a lot to so many people. So, brilliant news. So we're just going to shift on to the final subject, which is we do have a game this weekend, weirdly enough. I nearly forgot about that because this World Cup's going on. But we have a friendly at St James's Park against Rayo Vallecano. Me and Mark were chuckling about this because, believe it or not, just like pre-season, Rayo Vallecano are in what position, Mark, in La Liga? What position?
Were they eighth?
The eighth, just like every other team we play.
just like Mainz, just like Atalanta, just like Bilbao. Every team that you played in pre-season finished eighth in the league. So you have a pre-season friendly against a side that's currently eighth in La Liga. There we go. I think
Eddie and Mad Dog are just chucking dice at the wall. They just keep getting eights every time. Fuck it. We'll just play eighth place. But I mean, I don't know a great deal about Rayo Vallecano. I'm just looking around. Obviously, they're sitting in eighth in La Liga. Looking at their fixtures, they did beat Real Madrid 3-2 on the 7th of November, to be fair, which was decent. And then they've had a couple of shady little results in Europe and stuff like that beforehand. Just coming to you first on this one, Di. Obviously, 8th in La Liga provides a decent contest, I suppose, to get the lads back up. Certainly will be a bit more of a contest than Al Hilal reserves with Igalo up front, who was about 63 and kicked Miggy. So do you think this will be a decent game, mate?
Yeah, I think so. I massively enjoyed seeing Igalo when I was watching. I only managed to watch the first half, and the commentator said his name, and I was like, "That can't be who I think it is."
And he tweeted, "Sign him," and then he was shit. And I went, "I better not."
Yeah. And then his little face popped up, and I was like, "Oh bloody hell, it is him!" Yeah, I think the game for me, I'm not bothered about who starts and tactics and scores and whatever. I think for me, this is just an opportunity to get match minutes back in legs, isn't it? I think we've gone through a winter break, and I'm sure that Eddie will have been working the lads well, and fitness won't have dropped, so to speak, but playing proper football matches does, is a different thing to being training fit, So that's the big thing for me. I think they are, a good side. They move the ball well. I've seen them play once or twice this year, and they're quite a good team to watch, and they're quite energetic, high press themselves. So I think it'll be a couple of goals in the game. But for me, I don't really care. I just want, I'm glad that club football's coming back, and I'm glad that Newcastle are playing. And for me, as long as players get minutes and get experience of game time again, a good hour in the legs for most of our lads, even the lads who've been at the World Cup that are back with us, I think would be an important exercise.
Mark, I didn't even know that, Mark, that there's the return of Florian Lejeune. I didn't know that, man. I forgot he played for them. I thought he went to Eibar.
Yeah.
Did he move to Barcon after that, did he?
Yeah, he's popped about a couple of places,
Yeah. To be fair, I only just realised that the other day as well, so that's a bit of shocker with that one.
You're a stat man. No, you knew that all along.
I know. I hold my hands up and say, well, missed.
You're allowed one mistake
a
season, Mark. One mistake.
Thanks, man. God, I've got a long time to go without making
done,
another.
That's him. Fuck for the rest of the season. No more.
Interestingly, though, they do have the lad who I think was linked with Newcastle playing up front as well, Raul de Thomas. As well.
Oh, yes, I remember
he
him.
was linked. Yeah. I think we did it. Did we do a rumour has it video in the summer game as well? He was linked. So, they've got some good players in the squad. They're not Madrid. They're not Barcelona. They're not the heavy hitters, but they're a good side. As Dai says, they do move the ball well. And that's a good test when you're coming back into getting game time. So I think it's a very steady one to have, along with the cup match to get you ready for the return of the Premier League.
I don't think that Trippier and Wilson are going to be considered for this game. I don't think from what I've seen, and I think for me, the players that I'm interested in, I think in these games, is the likes of John Joe Shelby getting match fitness back in his legs, is the likes of obviously. Yeah, ASM as well, getting fitness back in those legs, as you say, Di, getting sharper, because we will have more injuries towards the back end of the season, and our big players will get injured. Wilson will get injured. Isaac obviously can't make it, which is disappointing. Bruno's going to come back from the World Cup, and he is going to be fit. I mean, he's already put Instagram pictures of training, but I don't think that Bruno will be in the squad. I think I heard that Eddie Howe was going to give him and Shaw a bigger break, but I think he was already back. Bruno, because he fancied obviously a bit of training and everything, but yeah, I mean, I want to see the likes of Elliot Anderson as well step up in games like this. He's had little drips and drabs. I was quite disappointed. I watched the game Al Halal on the website, and Anderson was a couple of little nice moves when he come on, but he was a little bit disappointing. And I know PK loves him and calls him the Geordie Maradona because of all the Bristol Rovers fans. But Di, what do you think? What do you think we should do with Anderson? Do you think that he still has a part to play in this squad for the rest of the season? Or do you think come January he might be one of the bodies shipped out? I know he doesn't take a squad place because of his age, does he? So he might not need to be shipped out to create room for incoming players. But what would you want to see with Anderson, mate?
I said at the start of the season I thought he should have gone on loan. I didn't think he was going to develop in the way he needed to just by sitting on the bench. And I think what we've seen of him since, as good as a player he is, I think has proved that. I think if he's gone somewhere, and I think would to come back in January or something like that, then I think it would be a different perspective. But for me, I think he needs that time to go play football, and it showed how impactful that was when he was at Bristol Rovers, and what that confidence gave him, and the experience of playing men's football is something you can't replicate in training. So I think it'd be really important for him to go. And to be honest, I don't really care where it is. Obviously, it'd be great to see him go in the Championship, but even if it's League One, I don't think it matters. I think if he can get out there and is playing regular football, that is going to be so important for his development. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him go at all.
Yeah, I think Dylan Stevenson's a good shout, Ash, in the comments there as well. I think he might get another sniff mark because he did take that goal quite well. It was kind of fizzed at him by Fraser against Al Hilal, and he did finish it quite well, and he scored a lot of goals in the reserve. So do you think we might get to see a little bit of Dylan, do you think, mate, at the weekend?
I think probably. I think this is the time, isn't it, where you've got the gaps from some of the players being given the kind of time off from these games is to play a few more of the fringe and the younger players to give them a little bit of experience, get them in working with the squad and stuff, and just see what they're capable of. And they can only, if they do well, then it's just a real promising sign for the future. And then they say with Anderson, I think that is absolutely right. I think you're at the point now where a January loan deal is probably the best option to get him regular football, and get him, that boost in confidence, that comes with playing regularly and playing well. So, I think when you look at him, especially, I think that's probably the next step.
I think a lot of a lot of the stuff that the club want at the minute is to get these Geordies out on the pitch and people from the area representing the club. I think that's a big deal to them. I think that not only works from a fan engagement perspective, but it works for the financial perspective as well. I think when you talked about this with PK a couple of weeks ago, and Carl, I think talking about how much money Man City have generated selling off their academy products, for example, I think that's something that eventually Newcastle want to do as well, and to do that you've got to see these lads out playing and see if they're going to be able to play for the first team or if they need to be sold and shipped on. And I think we're going to see a bit more of that, some lads coming through in cup games, and obviously this is a unique circumstance of this friendly, but I think we'll see a little bit more than that, because these lads do need to get experience, but we also need to know quickly, given the amount of money we're spending, are these lads going to come in and do something for us? So I think there's going to be quite a high turnover of some lads giving a bit of a sniff, and then, yes, you're on loan, or ta-ra.
Well, exactly. But as Tacoin and Frey says there, as long as they've got clauses and then come back if we get fucked with injuries, But hopefully come January, mate, we'll stock up a bit more on players and we'll add to the squad. And I think we'll do quite well. Just a little mention on this, Mark, as a resident keeper of Evermore before we close the show. I thought Carriage looked quite good as well, mate. Not physically looked good because he's a handsome bastard. I mean, looked good between the sticks. You know what I mean? I was quite worried when we signed him. So I thought, shit, we're just getting a good looking Mike Hooper, but he's actually looked quite good. Mate, so.
He's not a bad goalkeeper, is he? And let's be fair, he's not going to be your number one. And we said that at that point. You're not bringing him in to take over from Nick Pope. You were really bringing him in as a real backup, and if he was absolutely needed, then he would do a job. But you weren't really worried that he would ever really be needed. So, if you can keep him around,
would you keep him over Darlow?
I would.
Yeah, I think
gain experience.
I think he does have that. I think he's a step above Carl Darlow. As it might not be much, but it just gives you something, and that experience is really, really handy.
That's a good shout from Ash. He gets lambasted, doesn't he, for that final? But
right.
As Di was just about to launch into there, it was because of one super duper man in particular, Di, wasn't it? Lord Gareth the Bale.
Yeah, Sir Gareth. Yeah, no, I agree with everything that Mark's at. Have him over Darlow. I think Darlow's a good enough shot stopper. I just don't think he's ready. I feel like he's got a clanger. I don't think his footwork is particularly good, and I think he can get shown up from range sometimes. I don't think his kicking's very good. I think Karras just seems a bit more reliable, but I'm not too arsed one way or the other, to be honest. I think unless as long as nothing bad happens to Nick Pope, then we'll be absolutely fine.
That's it.
We should be okay. But I mean, the thing is as well, we've had Darlow for like 10 years and he ain't got much better, really, has he? He had a couple of little purple patches, so he's not going to get much better either, really. But just quickly before we close up then, lads, fixtures, predictions for the weekend. You don't have to give me scores. Newcastle win or Newcastle draw or lose? What do you think?
I will say I think we're going to win a bit of a high-scoring game. I'm going to say Newcastle 3-2.
That's very optimistic for you, Di. You're normally a bit more pragmatic than that, mate.
It's a friendly, mate. I don't really give a shit, to be honest.
You don't give a fuck. Caution to the wind. Fuck
exactly.
What do you think, Mark?
I think 3-1, 2-1, 3-1 Newcastle way. I think, look, I guess it depends on the side, but the result really is irrelevant, isn't it? I know you want to carry sort of momentum, you want that good winning feeling to continue, but this is all about making sure everybody's fit, everybody's ready to go for next week, and that's really it.
I agree. I'm going for the same. I think I'm going to go for about 3-1. I think it'll be a decent performance and a decent little bit of exercise. But just before we close off the show, as I mentioned at the start, it is happy birthday to us. This is our 1 year anniversary. 1 year ago today, me and Mark sat here and did this. We built up a cracking squad of lads. We've got the Welsh Wizard down here, other boys that can't be here, likes of PK, Audie, Lee, Carl, the new signing, the Lynch man when he was here before, the blue tick man, Dan. Listen, we all love doing this, and we all intend to do this for as long as we possibly can, as long as you guys like it. But there's a man here on this episode tonight who does so much hard work behind the scenes. I am the gobshite behind the mic. Sorry, it's you, Dad. I'm the gobshite behind the mic, but this lad puts in so much effort into everything that we do. And I'm going to give you the final word on this, Mark, just to say something to the viewers about, our 1 year on the air.
Wow, put me on the spot. Do you know what the funny thing is as well, right? Before I get kind of going, I wasn't even on the first one.
Oh,
I sat in the background. It was Dan.
Oh, fucking get off then. Where's Dan? Get Dan on
Dan.
Hang on, I'm just gonna get Dan on the phone. Where's
get
Dan?
Him on. The very first one was you and Dan. And I think it was a Liverpool preview or Liverpool post. I can't remember now, but it was. We've come a long way since then. I think I sat in the background.
You were there. You just weren't talking.
I was there. I just wasn't on camera. But look, it has been a phenomenal year for us, and don't take anything for granted in this, because it's everybody that's been a part of this is done a phenomenal job, and it feels like I'm in an Oscar speech right now. I want to thank my parents. I want to thank my my dog, my cat. Well, to be fair, they've been a part of the show as well. So
it's Kanye West.
Kanye West. But no, look, it's my favorite part about this whole thing is the sense of community that we get in the chat, and the fact that everybody feels that it's almost a safe space as well. Just we've always said this: come and give your opinions. We don't care what your opinions are. We'll talk about them. There's nothing kind of off sort of limits with it. So it's just been really good. It's been so much fun to do. And God, I plan on continuing to do it for as long as we possibly can. So it's been really good fun. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. It is a lot of hard work at times, but I really do enjoy it. So it's been great, and we couldn't do it without you guys who watch, and click like and comment on the videos and stuff. So it's phenomenal. The support from everybody has just been great.
It's comments like that. That's why we.
What did I say that's prompted these ones to come in now in the chat? My God,
we've no idea. But I'm just clicking there. Yeah, thank you so much, guys, for all the lovely comments. We always appreciate it. So this is us all signing off from our 1 year anniversary show. So it's goodbye from me and the lads. Let's keep supporting that team. We'll call United. We'll be back, hopefully, Mark and I, with what's going on Monday night. Now Mark isn't dying of man flu, so we'll have that back, and then we should be back going forward normal Evermores every Wednesday. So make sure you stay tuned to the channel. If you're new, smash that subscribe button. As I said at the start, loads of room for you on here. As Mark said there, it's a cracking community. Loads of good crack in the chat. Even if you don't want to listen to us, a lot of ramble. There's loads of good banter going on in the chat room as well. So this is us signing off. Have a cracking evening, guys, wherever you are, and we'll catch you later.
Take care, guys.
Good night.
See ya.